everyone. I'm Charna Davis-Wiese, and welcome to UCF in Print. You know, the world is getting smaller and UCF is getting bigger. In the past 10 years alone, it's become a mega force, and part of that is becoming international. Join me in welcoming my guest today, who is one of many people helping to make that happen. Angel Cardec is a big force at UCF, and it takes a lot of people to do this. It takes a village to make this international, doesn't it?
It takes the world to make it international.
It's really something when you think, you know, it's almost a cliche, the world is getting to be a smaller place. But it is. And a lot of the students here, not only the students who are going to be coming here, but the students who are from here are going to be dealing with careers and life in a global community, and helping them achieve that kind of even understanding at the university level probably is going to help make this an even more global world. Is that part of the mission here at UCF?
Yes, definitely. One of the things that we're doing for that, you mentioned about we are either bringing people in or taking people out. One of the things that we're doing for that is the study abroad programs. We are working with our faculty and working with our students to identify opportunities for them to have an experience outside of the U.S. We have students who have an internship, have been doing an internship in London, for example, or have nurses who have done some service learning in South Africa. We have had lots of different possibilities so that our students see themselves as something larger than just the U.S. They see themselves in context that it's global rather than just American.
You had once, in looking up some of the work you've done, I saw you did a speech, and it was talking about almost like a glacier. The globalization, am I right?
Yes.
And that made so much sense to me, with the foundation being something that we all hold in common, but then we bring our own ideas and cultures to everything.
Yes, it's the iceberg relates to culture, and what we see out of culture is just the tip of the iceberg. There are values, there are other things that we have in common that are really underwater, and we need to dig a little bit to understand what is that, all those values, all those ideas, and then link them to what we see, which could be the arts, for example. We sometimes think of culture as just the artifacts of culture, which are the arts or the architecture, but sometimes it's deeper than that. It's the values that we hold, and that's what that iceberg is all about.
I think in that talk you were talking to professors and teachers about how to globalize their classroom discussion.
Yes.
And my son was asking me the other day, and this is something that's kind of up your alley. I don't even know what brought it up. I think I was talking about getting ready for the show, and he said, I wonder how they teach about the Revolutionary War in England. And you know, I thought, when I was his age, I never would have thought of that. But it's really a way of looking at the world, that there's more than one viewpoint to history even.
Exactly. We had a wonderful, last summer, we had a wonderful workshop done by a faculty member, currently the interim chair of history. And she was presenting American history, what we call it American history from the margins. She had the experience of teaching American history in Germany. We also have a faculty member here who's teaching Russian history in the US. And we put them the two of them, teaching from the margins. How is it that you will present yourself from a position? So you as an American, you're teaching something that is really who you are. You are an American, so you're teaching your perspective, the perspective of an American. But we also had the other experience. Okay, this is a Russian person who have a context, all his life, all his circumstances have been there. He's teaching himself in the classroom. That's another thing that we want our faculty to be able to do, to bring clearly themselves, teach the students that we are ourselves, but also who we are is our circumstances, our place in the world. So that's we want to contextualize our knowledge. We want to show everything as part of something that is global or international. So that's internationalization. It's a comprehensive thing that takes, it's part of all we do, all the functions of the university. So it's the teaching, it's the learning, it's the research. We have people who are doing research all over the world. sometimes thinking of themselves, okay, like for example, the sciences, it's a global thing. The mathematics are global, but the applications of all those things have a context. So that's what we want our students to be aware to do, and do it well so that they can be successful in a global community.
And you become so much more of a literate and understanding person as well. I remember one of my favorite teachers was a class I don't even think I needed, and it was a history of Florida class when I was in college. And he he said whatever he wanted to say. And he taught us about the Civil War from not only a social perspective or a cultural perspective, but the economics behind it, and things that we were never taught in elementary school. And I felt like I knew more and understood more. But it's so hard to find that.
One of my best experiences was this professor at the University of Puerto Rico who taught humanities. But she was teaching humanities in a way that I thought it was telling me gossip about the world. So she was telling me about Goethe, but okay, when I was in Germany, I saw what he did, and the way she presented this in such a personal way that I thought I was living that experience. That's another thing that we want our faculty to be able to do, to engage the student in a way that they think that they're there. May share with you. We have a project going on right now. I don't know what the name is going to be. It's sort of a global network, and one of the things we're trying to do is have at least one class for the fall who would have a 1 or 2 week piece of the class that will be shared with another country. So our students are going to have our 16 weeks here. But 2 of those weeks, they're going to have an online discussion with another institution abroad, probably somewhere in Latin America because of the time difference, so that they can see themselves in that context, see themselves like peeking into somewhere other place. And that's one of the things that I'm just so looking forward to see. It may just not work, but I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, it sounds really fascinating. I think of the world as getting smaller via the internet. But in reality, as a reporter, I once had to cover a war situation in El Salvador. And after spending a week there, I realized there's a whole different world closer than North Carolina. There's a whole different world very close to us here in Florida that so many people are unaware of. And a lot of that culture is coming here too.
Yes.
Especially in this state, we have people from all over.
Yes. That's another reason for the goal of internationalization of our curriculum and research. When you go out of your classroom, when you go out of your house, you'll realize that the world is already here. And there are very large communities of Colombian and Mexicans and Puerto Ricans, of course. I'm Puerto Rican. and what we want to make sure is that our students are able to empathize with the difference, to accept the difference, not just to tolerate, but understand that in that diversity there is a certain strength. The easiest way that I have found, when you take the student, there may be some prejudices, there may be some histories that we want to address. When you take that student out to a different country, that student is a little bit outside their comfort zone, so they're more willing to listen. They're more willing to say, oh, well, let me look at the realities of those people. And then when you bring them back, they're able to maintain that learning with them and able to go back to the street and say, oh, so now I'm trying to understand what you here are going through, and empathize a little bit more.
And probably see our own differences. I was talking with a parent who had just moved here from Canada, and she said, oh, people think we're the same, but we're so different. It really surprises me. I said, well, you know what, people in Florida are really different than people in New York. People in New York are different than people in California, and there are cultural differences just a few hours away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How about the students who come here from other countries? Mm-hmm. I was reading about some of them and some of the things they have done from all over the world that come here. I imagine when they first get here, it must be very difficult, must be very lonely. But you have things in place to help them get used to it.
Our office doesn't deal directly with them. The International Services Center has not only deals with them way before they come here. They have orientations online. They have informational services. They contact the students as much as possible. When the students come here, I mean, you have the legal issues that they have to comply with, but then there are things that we are doing to make that student feel at home. For example, the International Services Center has something called the coffee hour, so the global conversations, or I don't even know what it's called, but the idea is to make sure that we are connecting people, for the ones from here, the ones from there. The Center for Multilingual Multicultural Studies does the same thing, but for practicing languages. So if you speak Japanese and you're here learning English, then we have our students who are trying to learn how to teach English, speaking to you, or the idea would be to have language as a vehicle for connection. So we're learning about people through the things that we do. It's kind of fun.
Sounds wonderful. We'll talk more about it when we come back. We'll be right back in just a few moments. We're talking with Angel Cardec, and he's one of the many people helping to make the University of Central Florida much more international, and it is in very many ways already. And we're talking about the students who come here from other countries, and I was looking at some of them. They're from France and Israel, Japan, West Africa, the Caribbean, China, Canada, Brazil, probably many more places as well. And what happens? They're here 4 years, 5 years, and then they decide, you know, I think I want to stay. Does that happen often?
Actually, it does. It happens often, but they have a 1 year period of time in which they can stay here legally, and then they may be able to just find other ways in which we can help them stay here legally. There are restrictions; they cannot just stay.
Right. You help them with the immigration process.
But as soon as they're finished, then they are expected to go home and join our family abroad. And that's another, the UCF alumni that we have all over the world is also very important for us. And you mentioned the other thing that we have, which are shorter term visitors, if you want to call it, is the exchange programs. Some of those are just here for 1 semester. When they come in, they are part of a program which we trade students. We send one out, bring one in, and we are they both have different experiences. They're both part of different institutions, and when they come back, they help us spread the word about internationalization. That's why we would like our students to, they're adding a lot to our economy. They add a lot, the international students, they add a lot to our economy. They add a lot to what we know about the world, and they help us grow. When they go back, they are an extended family.
And we talked about your journey to get here. It's really been kind of, you started out as a geology? I
started as a meteorologist.
Meteorologist.
Actually, before that I was a chemist.
So I didn't do that much research, right? A chemist, a meteorologist. And then how did your journey get you to, and the reason why this is part of the word is the word's out, to get the word out, to internationalize our university. How'd you get here from there?
After that, I have a degree, I have a master's in environmental planning. And I started teaching geography and environmental studies, and then I had the opportunity to teach in Panama with Florida State University, and then I guess I did my job, and I went 96, I was there again in 97, then I had the opportunity to go to London with the London Center, and I taught also geography there and environmental studies.
So you lived what you're making happen.
Yes, that's a very good way.
So you've been there. So we have to change the old adage, those who can teach, right?
Actually, I think that's very important, and I'm very happy to say that many of our faculty are speaking from experience. They are telling you something that they know either through research, because they really dig into it, and literally in the case of, for example, anthropology and archaeology, or they have lived it. They are international themselves, so they have studied or taught abroad. That's the people that we're banking on, that they are going to be able to not only teach what they know, but also teach it in the context of their lives, so that we teach our students, okay, this is who we are, this is what we bring to the table. When I was teaching environmental science or environmental studies, I could say, well, hey, when I was working with government, which I did, this is the way it worked. Or I used to be a hazardous materials coordinator. I could scare them when we were talking about hazards. So it's, again, when you put that, and then you teach it in a global perspective. And it depends on where you are, you're going to teach your class, because the students in Panama really may not want to see just the American perspective. They want to see a global perspective. So you learn that when you teach it in Panama, and then you teach it here as a global class.
So you created FSU Panama there.
I was the director of student affairs there.
Okay.
FSU Panama started in '57.
So you helped make it more of what it is today.
Yes. I was very happy to be able to help with the campus.
And from that, you went into another area of your interest that when I was researching you, I saw something about hurricane preparedness. Oh, hurricanes, we understand that. But you are researching perceptions of issues of hazards coming your way or flooding in Panama, which probably the same mindset, at least when it happens here. So what's going on with that right now? Okay,
because of my environmental planning background, and I actually when I work in government, I did hazards preparedness. I work with the hurricane loss study in the Appalachia area, and that's something I did as part of emergency preparedness. But that piqued my interest. So, okay, what happens? This is the way we see. I'm Puerto Rican, so hurricanes is part of who we are. I'm now in Florida. I've been in Florida since '82. Hurricanes is definitely part of who we are. So I got this interest in what is it that how do people get the ideas of hazards that they have? There's a lot of behavioral work about psychology and anthropology. But I just wanted to see what people thought. So we started part of my work, just starting a survey about, okay, what do you think is a flood? And I've been asking people in the Panama City and Panama, just the city, what do you think is a flood? And for now, what I've seen is, okay, people think it's always related to big damage and stuff like that. And okay, that's interesting. Then the next question was, okay, how high would be a flood for you to define it a flood? And most people would say, well, the height of your ankle. Are those things the same? What makes it an issue? So that's the kind of stuff that interests me. What circumstances, how your circumstances affect your perceptions. So it's more
and that's
kind of
very
theoretical.
Important with preparedness. And it's one of the things they fear in this state with after Andrew and after the hurricane season we had, which we won't go into too much. No. Then everybody was really worried and really prepared, and then came a season where nothing happened. So our perception, even though it's the same people, year to year can change.
Exactly.
And the big concern is now what's going to happen if are people going to get prepared?
And even if your circumstances are going to change your perception, if you change a house or if you don't have insurance, maybe you think that it's a little bit...
Well, you lost it because the insurance company said, oh, you live in Florida, out of here.
So it's interesting how we teach ourselves. It's going to become part of who you are. You naturalize it. So it's going to come naturally that you're going to think, oh, well, now I'm more scared. You still think that you're having the same perception, but maybe you're more scared now. When it comes out on paper, you're going to show us you're more scared, but your situation is, it's the same, but it really isn't. Your circumstances have changed.
Yeah, and whole coping mechanisms, really coping with it. I do know that I have a brother lived in San Francisco, and there was a time there was an earthquake, and it was about in the area where he lived, and you'd watch the media coverage, because I'm sure media has a lot to do with your perception, and it looked like all of San Francisco was on fire and in ruins. And the area that they kept showing was literally blocks from his home. And I remember when I finally got in touch with him, he said, I'm on bedrock. I said, the only thing is bothering me, it's messing up, I can't get to work or whatever. And the perception was it was much worse and much more far-reaching than it was, because we had the ability as media to zoom in to areas, right?
Exactly.
The worst areas we're not showing the people that are high and dry, and I'm sure that helps fuel the fear.
Exactly. I mean, not to say anything bad about media, because we need it for educational
Absolutely.
purposes, extremely important. But if we only focus on the really, really horrible aspects of what is happening, we may have a perspective that is really biased. And that's going to show when it's time for people to react to, let's say, hurricanes or something like that. It may be that they can stay home, but they're going to leave. Or it may be that they should be leaving and they're going to stay home. So we may be working against each other. So it's something that the state has been working on this since I've been here, since the 80s. It's something that the same thing happened in other places like Louisiana. We too much to. That's what I find that's so interesting. But that's not something that I do for a living. That's something that I like.
That's okay. We can talk about this. We can talk about the things you like. In working with this internationalization process and working in London and working in Panama, being from PR and living here, it's a cliche. We all like to say we're all the same underneath. Deep down, we all want the same things. Do you find that? Is there really some central thing that links all of the experiences you've seen and the people you've seen together?
I think people react to smiles, sometimes differently. Sometimes people used to find funny the fact that I wake up in the morning and I smiled. I was in Tallahassee.
I think that's wonderful.
It may be that it was like, why is he smiling? Is there something wrong with me?
That's so funny.
But I mean, that's who I am. And I think that one of the things that I've learned probably with my students, but I also try to teach my students, is that you are the set of circumstances. This is who you are, and you have to feel proud of who you are. And usually, that's my experience, usually that comes through. If you're self-assured, if you're comfortable with yourself, it doesn't matter where you are. That's going to come through. People are sometimes too scared about, but maybe I have a cultural faux pas. They will understand that too. Language, if you give it a try, people are saying, oh my God, that person is giving it a try. We're very proud of what you're doing, even in France. And some people, the French doesn't want you to talk. Hey, I was on the street and I'll try it, and my emergency French, and they will come through and say, hey, good try. And then they will speak in English because they can understand what I was saying.
Funny, even in France. I'll have to remember that one. But it's true. I know when we went to El Salvador, I used to be able to speak fluent Spanish. But when you don't use it, it kind of goes. I can understand what someoe's saying to me, but it takes so long for me to translate it back to come out of my mouth and remember the different tenses that it's gone. The moment has passed. But in a earthquake situation in the middle of a war, when I needed to know where something was, it's amazing how it came back.
Yes.
And it's true what you're saying. People really appreciated the fact that I was trying.
Yes.
But I'm sure, and sometimes I probably asked where the marshmallow was or something like that.
It comes out in context. I mean, when I got lost once and I got stuck on a train heading to Charles de Gaulle Airport, and trust me,
Here comes the French thing again.
and wonderful experience. I think I have French ancestry, so maybe that's a little bit of it.
They recognize that. So you had to get to Charles de Gaulle Airport. What happened there?
I got stuck on a train I picked the wrong train or stayed in the train too long, and it went into a station for service. And it was not the train. It was in the same direction. And then all the doors closed, and I had to actually communicate through a window for someone to open the train so that I could get out.
So was it this?
Yeah. Hey, it worked, and those experiences. I laugh at it. Probably I laughed at it at the time too. Either you laugh or you're going to feel uncomfortable. So. Again, something to teach our students, that you adapt to a situation as quickly as possible and you chuck it to experience and you move on.
If there was one thing that you could put into perspective and have your students take somewhere else from here when they go out into the world, is there something that you would want them to take from us, from UCF, out into the world?
Um, I don't know. That's a very, very difficult question. I think I've had so many interesting things happening at UCF. UCF is a very peculiar place. It is like a large family. It's a big university with the sense of a small college. I guess it's grown
Each
too
component.
fast. It sometimes it works really well. Sometimes the infrastructure may not have caught up, but what the people for me have been the difference. You found these people, I mean, especially in my area. I found people like, and I'm going to say a name, like Karen Baraima, a person who teaches in she's the chair of educational studies. That woman is all heart. And that's what led me, so that's the type of person that that's UCF. So that's what I would like our students to, even our international students, those experiences they'll take back and say, you see, that's UCF, the people.
It's not the buildings. It's not under construction
Exactly.
forever.
Exactly.
And that's probably what can make it seem small, as each component of the university, each college, each section.
Yes, but it's the people. The people are beautiful. The people are unique. They're very comfortable, and that's. I'm going to say something funny because I've worked with FSU for so long. That's my UCF.
That's wonderful. Great. Angel Cardec, thank you so much for joining us and telling us how we use words and information to get UCF out into the world and the world back to us. I appreciate you coming and being with us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I'm Charna Wiese. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time.